So grief, growth, and getting back to the roots. Prince is the truth. And I know that as we have discussed previously this afternoon, there's a lot to be unearthed and unpacked about this album. Prince's first and only acoustic album, The Truth, showcases the artist's virtuosic guitar playing, his clever and imaginative songwriting, his signature vocal delivery and production. But when we peel back the layers of the album's 12 songs, we discover something more. The Truth isn't simply a collection of stripped down tunes delivered at the height of the artist's pursuit of creative autonomy. It's a masterclass in African American music, melding elements of gospel, the blues, and soul to form the connective tissue between songs exploring grief, loss, spirituality, and maturation. The title track opens the album with the unmistakable Delta blues guitar and vocals ripe with gospel wails, runs, and intonations. The searing first lyric, "What if half the things ever said turned out to be a lie? How will you know the truth?" Sits comfortably next to any number of songs in his catalog with iconic, memorable opening lines like, "I ain't got no money, I ain't like those other guys you hang around," or of course, "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today," and "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and motherfucking girls." With the song, The Truth, we're stepping into a pensive space with an artist who has throughout his career up to that point been consistent in giving the listener more than a little bit to ponder. And while this isn't especially new terrain for the initiated who've been immersed in Prince's musical output into the mid-90s, it's an intriguing change of pace when considered within the larger context of the releases that came immediately before. Contrary to pop culture commentary, the 90s were far from lacking in terms of Prince's creativity and innovation. Although his commercial releases may not have received the same level of acclaim he'd experienced during the previous decade, they remain an era during which he continued to push out an impressive volume of work that seemed to follow a more contemporaneous storyline of who he was and who he was becoming at that time. For this reason, The Truth stands as an important point of reference for his story. Following the comparatively uneventful arrival of Graffiti Bridge in 1990, both the film and the soundtrack, Prince returned to the top of the charts with Diamonds and Pearls in 91, reminding those who'd written him off as an 80s has-been that he could still rock the house. The following year brought the so-called Love Symbol album, an ambitious rock opera concept that notably delivered a musical dramatization of a man struggling to reconcile his desires for multiple women with his desire for a particular one, among other themes. 1994's Come and 1996's Chaos and Disorder marked the end of the Warner Brothers era and opened the path to emancipation. An opus that finds the artist in a state of jubilation as he celebrates his new beginning in his career, marriage, and perhaps most importantly, impending fatherhood. As our friend Casey Rain noted in his exploration of the truth for his Violet Reality YouTube series, Facts You Didn't Know, unlike other albums in Prince's canon with rather clearly defined eras, The Truth occupies a somewhat more nebulous space. And I know that we've talked about this a lot, about how the storylines and timelines in Prince's universe blend and blur. So even with works whose eras and inspirations we've determined to be relatively obvious, it'd be mighty presumptuous still if any of us to think we knew exactly when or why Prince composed and recorded a song or an album. Still, given the events of 1996 and some of the recurring themes throughout The Truth, it's pretty safe to say that it situates within the Emancipation era, or perhaps more generally, the immediate post-WB era. This is important because, as stated previously, The Truth takes the listener on a rather unexpected journey with the artist, and not simply because of its unique production values. On the heels of track one comes Don't Play Me, which we've talked about quite a bit today, a provocative tune that plays both as a warning and a reminder. Speaking to the growth and maturation alluded to earlier on, Don't Play Me is a bold expression of autonomy and assuredness, where Prince puts his grown manness and his Blackness on full display. The song's lyrics pointedly set you up from the jump. I'm an adult. My mind is clear. I'm at a point in my professional life where I can do whatever I want and I have full control over it. And ain't nobody bad like me. Not only that, it continues his ever-evolving conversation about the role his faith beliefs play in his life. The sweet circle of amour is tame on its surface, a melodic tale of a group of BFFs, Mary, Claire, Denise, and Belle, whom the narrator observes somewhat from afar as they navigate life as sophomores in high school. I don't know, but when I listen to this song now, I think about that scene from Tales of the Tour Bus, the time where a young prince is animatedly just staring at everybody. So that's kind of the vibe that I get with this as well. It's told from the POV of a teenage boy, and we learn that these girls are in the throes of sexual exploration as Prince's delicate falsetto guides us through this one chilly day in September. From there, Third Eye, which blends elements of mysticism and traditional Christian doctrine, the wistful stroll along the Champs-Élysées called Diane, and the sexy role play romp of Man in a Uniform. One of the more interesting shifts in lifestyle that Prince adopted in the 90s, which you've talked about a lot today as well, is his transition to veganism and vegetarianism. And it takes center stage on the preachy and, in my opinion, very on brand for the newly indoctrinated into the animals are friends, not food army, Animal Kingdom. The Other Side of the Pillow is a soul-filled love song, and Fascination marries Latin jazz, Arabic rhythms, Minneapolis-born R&B into an up-tempo showstopper that is also, interestingly, the only song on the album with a full band. And of course, it's got Rhonda Smith, Kat Dyson, Mike Scott, Kirk Johnson, and David Haynes. But it's the final 3 tracks on the album that Prince pulls back the curtain, albeit ever so slightly, to reveal a trio of songs that give the listener a glimpse into more personal matters of the heart and soul. As a songwriter, I know that the best among us are able to craft profound stories from banal, day-to-day observations, things that they overheard, other people's trials and tribulations. Every song isn't necessarily autobiographical. At an ASCAP convention I attended several years ago, the great Bill Withers said of songwriting, it doesn't have to be autobiographical, it just has to be authentic. But here, I believe now, as I did more than 20 years ago, that One of Your Tears, Come Back, and Welcome to the Dawn serve to forge a dialogue between artist and audience. While Prince Vault supposes that the opening lines of One of Your Tears, did you get the tape I sent you, thought it'd be better in a song, pick up the storyline from Dion. According to that source and claims from singer-songwriter Dion Ferris, she is the Dion in question. The tune's brooding desperation could also maybe point to his fractured relationship with Maite. While technically still married at the time of the Truth's release, we now know based on her memoir, The Most Beautiful of My Life with Prince, that their relationship suffered a tremendous blow following the loss of their son, Amir. And while there doesn't appear to be a solid confirmation as to when Prince wrote One of Your Tears, its lyrical content seems to carry a bit more weight than what a song about a passing flirtation at that time. If I could just disappear, cease to exist, cease to be here. If you don't want me, I'm not worth the air that I breathe. That comes across as a cry for help, a gut-wrenching need to be seen, heard, felt, and supported by someone rapidly slipping from one's grasp. Prince is no stranger to flights of melodrama in his writing. The song Under the Cherry Moon evokes similar images of dying as a response to romantic abandonment. And of course, there's the infamous Wally. But with One of Your Tears, this feels darker in a much more unsettling way. Of no surprise to any of us who are gathered today to get through this thing called life, Come Back is almost certainly one of the few songs that Prince released that, taken at its most surface level, addresses the immense sorrow he experienced after Amir's death. Until You're in My Arms Again from the NPG's New Power Soul, maybe another, but that's speculative. A simple tune that places his acoustic guitar and sumptuous layered harmonies in the spotlight. This 2-minute track is the musical equivalent of the catch in one's throat that happens when a memory, a sound, a smell, or in this case, a subtle gust of wind unexpectedly delivers a loved one to us. For that all too brief moment, here they are again, reminding us that although they've left the physical realm, they remain with us in other ways. And so Prince implores, if you ever lose someone dear to you, never say the words, they're gone. They'll come back. As the song fades, he leads us with one more instruction. Tears go here. It's not so far reach to imagine him giving himself the space and the permission to grieve more openly, at least in the way that made the most sense to him through his music, and to invite us to do so. The album's final track, Welcome to the Dawn, acoustic version, closes the portal ripped open by the set's title track. If the truth asks the question of how we'd know the truth if it was staring us in the face, Welcome to the Dawn answers by pointing us back to faith. The dawn is both a place and a concept that figures prominently throughout Prince's music and mythology. And in the latter part of the 90s, the artist actively welcomed us to it through songs like Interactive and Gold. One could surmise that in this stage of his life, with everything he'd been through publicly and privately up to that point, that the final infinity stone left to collect was the one that would lead to his spiritual transformation. At the end of Welcome to the Dawn, a robotic sounding voice that would put you in the mind of Roger Troutman's Talkbox croons the last line of the chorus and then says, "Thank you." Since the songs from The Truth didn't really become part of his live performances after the album's release, although he did occasionally play The Truth, The Other Side of the Pillow, and Don't Play Me in later years, it feels even more as if Prince intentionally shut the door at the end of the record with no intention of ever looking back. Perhaps The Truth served as a cathartic experience for Prince, an opportunity to share a particular set of songs, born out of a particular set of circumstances, and meant to chronicle a particular moment in his life as an artist and as an extraordinarily gifted everyday human. Whether or not this is the case, he left us to ponder this question posed in the title track's bridge. When it gets right down to the nitty of the gritty, did you take more than you gave? Prince gave of himself through his music, and with The Truth, perhaps more than any time before, he gave us a unique opportunity to join him on a journey of grieving and healing and finding out who we are now. And that's it.